Hello, everyone. Welcome to the New World Aeternum post-launch dev update. I'm Scott, the game director on New World Aeternum. I'm here with Dave, the creative director, Dan, give a nod, the design lead, and Katie, the live lead. Before we get going, oh my gosh, we launched.
We did it.
We've seen people pile in the beaches. It's been awesome. It has been so fun getting the console players interacting with the PC players and watching all that fun stuff. Any stories you all want to share about the launch?
I really enjoyed seeing the raid. Like the first time seeing that completed was epic. Now people are optimizing it. It's like really cool.
Yeah, and mine is related to that because we just saw the first sub 30 minutes and actually first sub 20 minute raid run, which is really awesome, but also means we're going to make the next raid really hard.
I'm loving it being on console, so it's my living room. The whole family gets to play. It's really fun.
The response has been great. Thank you all for coming and checking it out. Like, I can't tell you how exciting it is for all of us to put this out there and see everyone playing it and giving us the feedback. So we're really appreciative. Couldn't be happier. So I know some of you are joining us for the first time. And what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about where we plan to go with New World in the future. We're going to start with Season 7 so we can walk you through all of the cool things coming out in Season 7 and sneak peek. They're pretty freaking cool. Beyond that, we have this thing that we're going to talk about called in development. So these are a bunch of features that we're working on. We are not ready to commit to a timeline, but we want to give you that insight and get some feedback from you, which will help us prioritize which ones come first and where we go. And then we're going to talk about some things that are in the early ideation phase. This is where we just want to get your sense which of these you like more than others, because this is where you can have a big impact on where we go with the game this year. But with that, Dan, you're going to take us through this.
Yeah, so next we're going to dive into these things one by one. We'll bring in some other folks to the table and gobble, gobble, let's go.
Gobble, gobble.
Hello, everybody. So now we are joined by three new faces at the table. We have three lead designers. We have Joel of Systems and Seasons. We have JR of Combat and Modes. And we have Chad of AI and Encounters. And we together are going to be talking about some things that are in our next season, which is coming at the top of next year. Obviously, we just got done shipping a big console game, and we're getting back up and running into content and feature development. And we'll take you through one at a time. The first one being something we've been talking about for a long time, finally have, super excited. Joel, do the honors. Tell us about Seasonal Worlds.
Yeah, this is one that I'm personally really excited about and something that I really have been invested in. So Seasonal Worlds are a season-based world that will last for the time of the season, so roughly around 3 months. That has unique rule sets where we really flip things on their head. The goal being that we provide players with a really unique experience that breaks the rules that, in the case, and I'll talk about it in a little bit, maybe PvP is always on these rules or on these worlds.
You gave it away.
I did give it away. As you know, the first server, not as you know, but as you know now, the first server is PvP focused, and that's something that's near and dear to me. I've played a lot of games over the years that I really enjoy that risk-reward feeling. The first server is at level 15. You'll be fighting other players. We've created a unique set of item and gear that you'll be able to craft. It's very heavily crafting focused, which I also really like, where the player will feel powerful in this gear, but the risk that comes with this gear that you'll be able to craft is that it drops on death, that it has durability. We're pulling back some of those old mechanics that don't exist in the normal world.
Resources and the gear.
Yes.
All drop on death.
The resources, well, the new resources to craft our special new really kind of super items that are on par with, say, artifacts in this server, those drop on death.
Yep.
But you'll be able to craft some more basic gear that's still pretty high gear score with some more basic resources like iron, timber, and hide. You'll be able to craft your normal gear that's still really high gear score, but you'll need to wear that special gear that's dropped on death to go get these new resources to craft these really cool big items.
That gear also, you should talk about, we went pretty crazy with it, right?
It's nuts.
Because it can drop on death. We did things that we normally would be kind of leery balance-wise.
Did you mention that it breaks too?
It does break.
Yes.
But to JR's point, we took some of these pieces of gear and we really pushed the limit on them to make them feel special, to make them feel like there's impact. These should feel on par to artifact items, if not farther in some cases.
Very farther.
Yeah. So really the goal is how crazy is it going to be? How much are we going to shake up the meta? How much of a different experience can we provide to you? While still some of that familiar feeling, that core of the game that is so much fun. So we can kind of experiment and again, find what's fun to you or fun to me or fun to each other. I'm really looking forward to what we can do with these systems.
It feels a lot like the original New World Alpha, but with all of the QOL and content that it now has. It's pretty cool.
We should also reiterate, like, so it's a brand new server, like that literally wipes every season. So you also get that new player experience every season. If you like that,
you get those hordes of players coming in from the beach. You get the camps on the ground. You're going to have a lot of like death and maiming getting to the settlements. That's my jam. I'm a somewhat of aggressive player, so I'm excited to see how players are going to treat this, how they're going to form up and protect each other, but also potentially rob each other from their gear.
It feeds into the territory system too. It brings those big stakes to this. Crafters are now like a necessary part of your war machine as you take over the server. It's all there.
And there's a lot of little fine-tuning quality of life tweaks that we're also looking at as well. So like, I know you just did the MSQ. We were looking at ways to make it so you can completely level by crafting if you want to. Again, we'll have more details on these things in the future, but we're really trying to fine-tune these little experiences to feel like you can play how you want, and that it's, again, slightly familiar, but completely different when you play through it. And I'm really excited to be bringing these servers to you.
That's awesome. It's a whole new frontier. I mean, it's changing up all the time too, which is great.
Yes, we have, I can't wait to tell you about all the ideas we have for future ones. And of course, they become places to experiment with things that we might bring into the main game. But that's not all. One of the other things that we're very excited to bring you, JR, I won't upstage you. What are we bringing?
Okay, so we know OPR is one of our most popular modes, and we've had the same map since launch pretty much, right? It came out shortly after that. So I'm excited to announce that we are in development on a new OPR map, and we're going to actually have it be in a preview form for Season 7. We're going to have it on for a weekend, and we want to get the player feedback on it, and so they can, you guys, we want you to help us to develop the map. We want to make sure that this map is lives up to the expectations that you have, having waited for so long.
And later in the video, we'll talk more about it, but I mean, this is just the beginning, right? We're spinning up multiple maps.
Yeah, absolutely. The modes pipeline is in full gear now. We're going to be making new game modes and new maps and for existing modes. And yeah, this new OPR map is kind of like, the first one out of the gate.
Yeah, we wanted to show it to you, even though it's not potentially not fully ready, again, to get that feedback, but also we're just so excited. Can't wait. Next on the list is kind of a few small things that we're doing for mutations, which are expeditions in the game have normal and mutated levels. So for M3, which is the highest level, we're adding these to the instanced matchmaking system. In order to make sure this goes smoothly, we are unifying our mutations. Tell us about that, Chad.
Yeah, so big ticket item here is that all the currently active mutated expeditions will now share the same mutation. So elemental, promotions, curses, all those will be the same across all of them, which means a lot less re-gearing, gemming your gear, and hopefully just more time spent fighting and having a good time collecting loots.
And then the other thing we're doing is we're increasing the quality of the rewards in the M3s.
Yeah, so we're looking at adding crafting materials into Mutated Expeditions, as well as in raids, that together, when they're combined, you'll be able to craft new 725s. So this will be an alternative source and give meaning to want to go back into these expeditions and make sure that you're actually having fun in the content you want. We're going to continue looking at that and improving it. For now, we like where it's at, and we think that it'll give more players a reason to go visit this content.
So adding more options to your endgame content.
Yes.
Along those same lines, we're also adding 2 new daily solo trials to the roster.
3 new solo trials.
Oh, mistake.
So we've got, we're adding Mother's Dream, which is Emperor Zhu, Tempest Mind, which is Isabella, and Daichi Saito. So that's adding to our roster. So you should be seeing those in your list every day.
Awesome, thanks, Chad. And then to round out the season, we have a few things that we like to do every season, starting with combat balance updates.
Yeah, so obviously, this is something we do every season. This season, some of the things that we focused on was time to kill. It's something we've been seeing in PvP a lot. the fight's going a little too long. So we're making some adjustments to consumables and some of the perks. And then we're also looking at balance around target lock. Target lock's,
Target lock, you say?
Yeah, we turned it on in PvP for the Aeternum launch, and we've been keeping an eye on the feedback. And
By the way, thanks
data.
again for all the feedback right before launch as we went through beta. It was very helpful, and we made some changes. And
yeah, absolutely. We did tone it down quite a bit from what it was in beta. And we're going to be continuing to tune things. One of the changes that's coming up in season 7 is actually the blunderbuss was a problem. We had nerfed the damage going into launch. Now we've reversed that, and instead we've replaced it with some extra inaccuracy in target lock as kind of a balancing factor.
Yeah.
And we're going to be continuing to make tweaks like that in the future.
Yep, absolutely. There's also new artifacts, new perks.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be introducing 8 new artifacts in Season 7. 7 of them will be weapons, and there's one accessory, which is an earring.
Nice.
And yeah, there's some interesting combos that are going to come out of that.
There's an ice gauntlet in there that I really enjoy. It's a really cool ability on the gauntlet that lets me, when I ice tune, give me a large amount of regen at the end of that. So I'm excited to try out and see what I can actually get away with that, or if I still die. But we'll see how it goes.
Sounds like trouble.
Yeah, well,
That's his nickname.
That's a fun.
Joel Trouble Clift. And then, well, why don't you bring us home with talking about the seasonal events?
Yeah, so we're doing some refreshes on a few events. We're looking at Legacy of Crassus and upping the rewards a little bit more meaty rewards past level 700. Same with Siege of Sulfur. And then we're going to bring a little bit more rewards into Rabbit Revenge. That's a little bit more fun costumey. Maybe a little bit of trolley in there as well. We'll see how it goes. Hoping to get those events to console players for the first time as well, as they haven't seen these events.
So that's everything in next season. We're very excited about the OPR map.
Yeah.
Very excited about seasonal worlds.
Absolutely.
More details about both coming soon. And remember, we're just getting started. Now, let's talk about what's in development. So in development is somewhere in a more midterm timeline. We're definitely looking into stuff, but there's still plenty of room to discover. And yeah, so I mean, there's tons on this list in no particular order. We can start with
Invasion.
Thank you.
Why I like Invasion as something that we're working on is because I think it's super cool content. It's sort of unique to New World, this idea of battling hordes of people. But the content is a little limited in terms of participation because it's only a set time. It can only take this many people. So what if we turn this into a mode? Right? Like, I think we're starting to make more and more modes. The activity screen is a great place to sort of like, what do I feel like doing? So like, let's get Invasion into a mode. And I think once you start going in that frame of mind, I'm sure lots of things can, like, could we add some more enemies? Could we add maybe mutations? What happens to the rewards? Like, lots of ideas start to come up.
Yeah, definitely, like adding more variety to the mode. Like, we have all these different kinds of corrupted enemies that we aren't using in the mode currently. So like bringing those in and like having it vary up like per season even, like, be awesome.
Yeah, it's great content. I mean, speaking of modes, I mean, that's one of the things that your team's looking into more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually prototyping lots of different kinds of game modes, things you might have seen in other games, like Capture the Flag, that we think would actually work really well in our game. Also, like a Battle Royale mode, like a lot of those systems that make up Battle Royale already exist in the game. So like, mashing them together, creating a queuable mode for that.
Yep.
And then also like, so kind of like a framework for new modes might be like doing like more of a seasonal type experience where every season there's like a featured game mode for that season and we vary it up like every season.
Yeah, I love that. Like even something like Capture the Flag. One season maybe we try it with mounts, the next season without. Like there's ways you can sort of like keep it fresh and interesting.
Yeah, it increases variety, and then it also kind of keeps the number of modes maintainable, so that we don't split up matchmaking too much and stuff like that. For sure.
Exactly. Yeah, like every new queue that we add like splits our player base, and we want to avoid that.
Yeah. And then we've talked a lot about modes and how like they sit really well next to our open world, but like the open world and the persistent new world experience is super important, and that's where we're looking at all kinds of stuff, like QOL things.
Yeah, like one that I know we're thinking about is storage, right? Like how many times have you been crafting and you're like, where's this material? Or you're
so much.
you're about ready to run a mutation and you need a special piece of gear, right? So like if storage was much more global,
Yep.
what
But
would that be like?
still filterable. You want to be able to make sure you can find those things or sort it in a way that's meaningful to you, but not have to chase it down every time you want to do an action like crafting and other places like that, right? Pull it out.
Yeah, this is one where we have to kind of solve like more edge cases than you think of. There's tech, but we definitely want to do it and get it out there. Similar to modes, also one of the pieces of endgame content that we love, but we want to try to improve upon is wars.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So I bet that the majority of the player base has not experienced a war because it is very exclusive content, but it is so good. It's so fun. So our goal is to provide a way for the rest of the players to try it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the thought is that we would do some kind of like private war system or like a pickup war where any company can challenge another company to a war.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a way of like, bringing war to the masses.
I love it, right? Because there's so much that war relies on right now. Like it's so important that people don't want to take risks. But if you make it something that like any two companies can set it up, you don't even have to be in a company. Maybe just any 50 people can get together. It allows people to try new builds. It allows people to try new people rather than slot the exact same people in every time. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's a place right now where you can't really slot somebody unless you have no way to vet them or audition them. And then, like you said, just more people being able to experience it at all. So we've heard from a lot of you, and we completely agree that the start game for a new world is now better than it's ever been. The mid game is feeling good. It's really when you get to the end game and the kind of like systems and dailies take over. That's where we think we can double down and make things start to really click and awesome. We've all got thoughts on this, but Joel, why don't you begin?
Yeah, absolutely. So first I want to say we hear you and we understand that a lot of the older content, we really want to refresh that. We want to make it feel like you can go back to Reek Water and have impact. You can go back to really crafting high-end gear, finding unique things from crafting. In an earlier segment, we talked a little bit about how we're improving item crafting from mutated dungeons. We really want to take that to another level across the board. One example would be looking at reputation systems for some of the zones and being able to build up and kind of have a reason to go somewhere you might not normally go, build up, get better rewards, have reasons to go craft there, have reasons to go do different gameplay elements such as ECRs, such as questing, potentially new gameplay activities in some of those areas, new collections. We're really trying to push kind of play how you want to play.
Yeah.
Part of that's like making rewards that you care about, right?
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
So it's like in the past we've had just like this gear score chase, and then you get the perks you want, and then you're kind of done, right? Like, but we're talking about having a larger variety of perks that are like more of a horizontal progression, like something the combat team's been talking about actually is like we have like one unique perk per ability, but there's nothing to stop us from making like 10 unique perks per ability, right? Like, and having just a lot of variety and like changing up your gameplay that kind of is more of like a horizontal thing.
And then taking that a step further and potentially putting those perks in unique places. So I have to go to this dungeon or Reek Water or this zone to be able to get those perks, and also making those perks have more of an impact in different game modes and different areas of the game as well will really help flesh some of this out. Really make crafting meaningful is something that I'm personally passionate about. I love to go gather, click rocks, whatever you want to say in the game. That's my jam. I love doing those type of things. You'll find me gathering more often than not. But I really want to make sure that crafting has that meaty impact that we had previously. You're able to craft some of the best gear and it has a reason and a purpose is one of the biggest goals we have for this. Beyond that, really making sure that you can kind of play the way you want and go to the zones that you want or the modes that you want, and making sure that those rewards are meaningful, not just go to the raid, not just go to Sandworm, and not just go get golden coconuts and other things like that.
Yeah, I think that's the best summaries. Like, play the way you want and always feel like you're making an impact, like you're progressing in some way.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. And there's so many ways we can do that. I love the idea of the reputation systems because it's like a new level of meta progression. And I think there's some neat ways we could do that versus just a very grindy way, make it more quest oriented or something like where you feel like you're unlocking powers in a zone. I think there's cool ideas there.
And this is another place where seasonal worlds kind of help us experiment and try out new systems. Look for more of that.
Yeah, I think if we can get this end game ripping, like we have the sort of the early and middle game, I think that's the sort of the last piece, like you said, that could really sort of keep people playing and excited.
And it's going to take a lot of work. Like we have a lot of ideas and a lot of things that we want to do, which is why you'll see on our living roadmap that we have improvements to things and then overhauls to things. And one is for midterm, one is for long term, which maybe this feels like a good place to now start talking about long term. All right, now we're joined at the table by Kurt, our lead designer for world content. And we're going to talk about the third category on our document, which is in exploration. We want to share our early thinking and what we have in store for sometime in the future. As we said earlier, we're all in on endgame right now. We want to make replayable content. We want to make more things to chase, more frequent content updates. And some of the things we're thinking about are, we'll start with kind of our known things like new weapons, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So nothing to announce on specifics here, but we are in development on our next weapon, and we actually are going to be prototyping multiple weapons, and they'll be coming out at a more regular cadence in the future.
Yep. And then zone up levels and new zones. So Kurt, you worked on the Cutlass Keys up level, for example.
That's right. Cutlass Keys was an experiment in what it would be like to create a max level replayable zone in New World. As many of you know, the questing system and level up experience looks a lot different than it did when it first launched. And as part of that streamlined process to make it level up as immersive and fun as it could be, there are parts of the game that kind of got left out of that streamlined leveling quest line that we did. So we're looking at taking some of those zones that are no longer part of the level up experience and repurposing them into max level explorable play spaces. And so one of the things that we're currently working on is a Reekwater up level to refresh Reekwater for max level players and bring new elements of progression and gameplay to the zone.
I think one of the things I'm most excited about that is some of the collection elements that I've seen from your team that you guys are really investing in. I'm a player that really likes to go exploring. I like a little bit of PvP, and getting me out into the world to just kind of emergently discover what's there or go out and look for these things to collect is something that's my jam. I really enjoy that, so I'm excited to see what happens with these.
Yeah, the idea with Reekwater is that we want to try and create more of an open world experience than an on-rails quested experience.
Yeah.
There's so much content in the game, actually, that players don't really have a reason to explore because they hit max level, and there's like no reason to go back to this zone. So like this is awesome. And this in conjunction with some of the stuff that we've already talked about, like a reputation framework. These are going to be great systems to use going forward to make our endgame content more replayable for players.
Yeah, and there's more even than what's on what we're publishing and talking about today. But yeah, like taking all the content, give you reasons not just to go to it, maybe even for the first time, but again and again and again. And I'm very excited about how we're kind of approaching doing our up levels as building the pieces to eventually culminate in that new zone when that does finally come out. New World is always meant to be a sand park, and we started out all sand long ago, back in the alpha days. And we've got our park nice and built, and I think where we're at now, we need to kind of find that right balance between sand and park, and that means bringing more sandbox. Like we have the systems in place, so like when you see us say things like influence tower, claim siege system, territory overhaul, these are things that players have been asking for, and I think everybody's got a different idea of what to do. But to me, like I would even conceptually say that company hall ties with that, because like these are things we need a way to feel like you have a home in the game, that you're doing some kind of a base building loop, and that's what the territory system is meant to be. But it's just, I think we can
that
get
you and your
there.
friends, that you and your company have goals to be able to build up and activities to do together, and feel like you're making meaningful progression and impact on what those things are. again, together you're building up, and I think that's a big thing. I love those company style guild halls and other things that you can build in other games, and I'm excited to see what we do there. I think that's something I'm personally going to enjoy a lot.
But also, like, making it more than just like the top companies on the server get to participate. Like, it's more like, you know, anyone can start a company, build something. Like, they have a little slice of the world that they, you know, own. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think it's also worth mentioning that we're not just focused on overhauling or revamping existing locations and systems, but we are ideating on new locations in the world that we can add to New World to progress the narrative and expand the world in new, exciting ways as well.
Some of the early looks on some of the new areas and raid style stuff that we're prototyping, I'm so excited for. They're just so cool looking.
Yeah, me too.
Some of the coolest art assets I've seen, so I'm excited to see players get those things.
Yeah. Well, we won't go into any more details than that, although there were no details at all. But we won't talk anymore about some of the ideas. But the big takeaway is, like, we're excited. We hear the players. New World is a wonderful world to just hang out in and play in, and we just need reasons to do that more and ways to go deeper. That's what we're looking at.
Wow, that was a lot of information. Thank you to all of the folks, Dan, you and the group, for sharing all that information. Really appreciate it. I don't know about you all, but I think, like, I found it all exciting. If I had to pick one thing, though, I think the seasonal servers are just going to change the way people play the game, and I think that's awesome. Really, really cool.
For me, it's the OPR map. I've been waiting a while. I'm excited to bring something out for players. I think they're going to like it.
I'm just excited to go home and ride my turkey mount.
Gobble, gobble.
Gobble, gobble.
My goodness. Yeah, we talked a lot about, like, what's coming next and things that we're thinking of for the future. But there is something that's coming up that we haven't talked about, which is free trials. So this is something that's on console. And so if you have friends or family who've been wanting to try out New World Aeternum, this is a really great opportunity for them to hop in and try it out for free. So look for more details on that on the site.
And beyond that, the one thing I really want to do is just a big thank you, heartfelt thank you. Like, the team put their heart and soul into making New World Aeternum, and when you see so many people come in and play and experience it and have a good time, it makes it all worth it. It feels really good. So, like, on behalf of the entire team, thank you to all the players. Like we couldn't be more appreciative. And with that, we will see you in Aeternum.